It's Wednesday night.
It's Wednesday
Yeah.
night.
How do you like this layout? Is this layout better than the other one that we normally do?
Sure. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
guess.
I don't know. We can go to another like this one. I like this one. This one actually works pretty good.
Yeah, the
Doesn't
only thing
show
is,
so much of the background.
when you bring up the things, bring up their just pick one.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
no
I
no
like
no.
this one.
Like
Oh,
yeah, do that one. But like when you pull up someone with what they're asking a question, does it mess
oh.
up the bottom?
Let's see. Let's see. Okay, because we already have a tech question. We'll
Yeah.
get to that here in a second. No, it
Oh,
looks good,
that's
man.
fine. Yes, this is
Yeah.
it.
All
The new
right.
one. Good.
Well, it's Wednesday night, and if you're not familiar with Wednesday Night Tech Talk Live, welcome to the only Wednesday Night Tech Talk Live show that will answer your tech questions live. Um, and we actually answer tech questions.
Yes,
Uh,
real tech questions. Yes.
but all right, so starting from the top, we got Mama in 3, One Eyed Cat, 38 Racing, which is used to be I think 38 POS. I'm not sure, but Twisted Mopar Garage, Buff Del Campo, Slant Daily, 7 minutes until showtime. You can tell where I was at doing this, so I wasn't even here yet, obviously. Bear Rose Garage, Miss Cat G, D150, Aaron Germanson, mostly old parts Ron Ward, the voice of the No Name Nationals.
Yeah.
He says, I'm sitting in a Chinese takeout place waiting on my order, Mongolian beef and fried dumplings, yum.
Nice.
That's what the Chinese should be providing in the United States.
Right.
Yeah, not spark plugs. Okay. Buick 350 V8 Power, Fab Race Mod Repeat, Miss Cat G, and I think Buick Smith, Clayton's Toolbox, and Michael Schmidt is here. Mr. John Wilburn says, Happy Wednesday, party people.
And it
Okay.
is a sorcerer-free network. How about that?
Sorcerer Free Network. We're coming live with anti sorcerer. Okay,
Oh
if you
man,
guys know what that is, that was about, well, I guess before everything, all the shit hit the fan with my life and Professor P's life.
it was
Um,
22.
yeah, 22. That's when everything was at its height. That's when the first year of the No Name Nationals, it was really good. And we had all went to PRI. A lot of us from No Name Nationals that we had either worked together first time that year or had participated at No Name Nationals the first time. And we all kind of just met up at PRI as like an impromptu post No Name Nationals party trip, I guess, to see what you say it's to see the automotive community and all the people within it. And we were trying to find some sponsors maybe for the event. And anyway, it turned into just having fun. And we were walking around at PRI and we decided, what if we had a booth that was literally like a fake booth, right? There was
Yeah.
automotive sorcery
Like
booth.
all this stupid shit you see on YouTube, right? Or
Yes, yeah,
Facebook or TikTok. Yeah.
the stuff that doesn't work, but it always sticks out. Like in every time you talk to your buddy or whatever, he was like, "Oh yeah, my neighbor used to have a 383 Hemi and his Barracuda with a convertible 68 Barracuda with a 383 Hemi and a 4-speed." You
Right.
know, those
It jump
guys
a it jump a Coke bottle, right?
jump the Coke can, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Grab the $100 bill, and then we thought, okay, there's all this sorcery out there. The swap and the pistons thing, um, I don't know, what is it? The nitrogen generated air that you can suck in your carburetor and get better gas mileage stuff, all of those weird sorcery tricks that are tried throughout the internet. What is it? The lawnmower carburetor on your 302 and stuff like that, and we wanted to have a booth that just specifically focused on that,
Yeah.
cleaning parts with gasoline, the whole 9 yards. Um, and the idea was to like people, because you've heard it so many times, you show them and they would like, holy cow, this really does happen.
Right.
This really does work, and just see how well it would go.
Yeah.
But the whole idea was to build an entire engine um, live while you're at PRI using nothing but the sorcery stuff,
And see if
and
it
then
runs
see
at
if it
the end.
runs. Yeah. All right. So let's see
Tech
who
question.
else we grabbed in here. We got a couple more. I need to go back to that original Tech Talk question though. So Dakota's timeouts in here, Dizzy Izzy's in here, Daniel Boyd's here, And Nick the Van Man made it. I'll come back. We're going to run right back to the top and start with all the tech questions. So 38 Racing says, Dallas, right off with a tech question without the car, how is the best way to identify a switch pitch 400? The two electrical connectors are a start, but not conclusive. Okay. So what he's talking about is on a regular Turbo 400, it has just the one electrical prong on the side, which is the electronic kickdown, the electrical kickdown to kick the Turbo 400 down into a passing gear, essentially, right? Now, on a switch pitch, the torque converter is controlled as well by voltage, and it'll have. Oh, and did you check to see how long it was before I said
6 minutes?
Perfect. I knew you were. I saw the look on your face.
I was laughing so hard, man. It was 6 minutes.
All right. Well, on
6 minutes to switch pitch.
On the switch pitch, it has two electrical connectors on the same one, except for one of them is horizontal and one of them is vertical. And the vertical one is the one that controls the torque converter. So that's what he's talking about. He must have found a transmission with two of those on there. So he's thinking it could be a switch pitch, but it could be a regular Turbo 400 and someone had it rebuilt or replaced or broke that piece on the side and just replaced it with one for a switch pitch. Okay. So the other way to tell from the exterior of the car is if it has any of the old switches hooked up to the gas pedal, because there should be two micro switches hooked up to the gas pedal. And they're generally on the throttle linkage underneath the hood on the side of the carburetor. Now, if it doesn't have that either, and you're still wondering if it has a switch pitch and you're trying to look at it externally to be able to tell, on the back of the Turbo 400, there's a tag and it'll say like BP or BO or OB or OS. And that tells you what the original intended purpose of that transmission was. So if it was in like a 1967 Buick Riviera, it would have its own code. And that would tell you if it's from a 67 Riviera, it probably was a switch pitch. Now, if it's from like a Cadillac had switch pitch. Oldsmobile, it was an option, and Pontiac did not have it. So if it's a Pontiac transmission, guaranteed probably is not a switch pitch unless someone's converted it. The only other guaranteed way to tell is pull the pan, and then right in the very front of the transmission, like right behind the pump, there's another solenoid that looks like a kickdown solenoid in there. And that one runs the switch pitch for the torque converter. That's the only other way I know of to be able to tell from like externally without getting really into the thing, without pulling the tranny or something. But pull the pan, it should have two kickdown solenoids in it. One for the kickdown, one for the torque converter control. Okay. Let's see. Buick 350 V8 power. While doing my impression of a pretzel with bleeding fingers, I'm all ears under the dash of my Skyhawk, listening to our two gurus while swapping the heater core.
Oh,
man,
good luck.
So this dude put up there, I think it was 16 hours ago. I saw that this morning when I was making this, when I was making the thumbnail. He's like, he said, like, imagine how much pain it would be to swap the heater core in one of these cars. And I was thinking, oh my God, man, it's like, that would have to be epic pain, because it'd be worse than like a Fox body Mustang where you have to remove the dash, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're literally before the Fox body. So everything's super compact. They probably do have to remove the dash. I don't know.
That's why I love Dodge Darts. This one right here is an AC unit style one. I can get the heater core out, the whole box out in about 20 minutes. And then the non-AC ones, I can get them out in about 15 minutes.
Now, can you take them out the front? Can you take them out like underneath the hood?
No. They come out under the dash, but it's just a box that bolts onto the firewall with 3 bolts. It really is really simple. Right. The hardest thing is just getting the actual wires. Yeah, the hose, it's the cable lines that actually, move the doors. That's the hardest thing.
Yeah. And so you don't break everything. You gotta be really extra ginger with those things.
Yeah, because it's like this really cheap fiberglass type stuff,
Oh. Okay, I didn't know that, but
it's like a plastic fiberglass. Yeah, and over the years it just deteriorates. It probably is good here, but in California it gets so dry out that it just they crack.
Well, I don't know if you've ever noticed that in California, where you came from, where all the cars were fairly nice. You go to the Midwest, and it's like the bodies are falling off, but the interiors are in good shape.
Perfect.
Um,
Yeah. In
yeah, so
California, it's
out
the
there where
exact
you're at, it gets
opposite.
vaporized and falls out the window.
Exactly. That's what my
But the
68
sheet
Dart
metal's
up
good.
there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, the
perfect.
sheet metal okay. Everything else burned up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's cooked.
All right. Nick the Van Man says, tech question. Before I stab my engine trans in a week, I have a factory high stall converter 1800 to 2000 with my small cam 206, 216, 477, 477. Would I help or hurt going to a 25 to 2800 stall converter?
It wouldn't make any difference because you're not going to be building enough torque. Really, I would just keep the factory high stall, which is 18 to 2000, just leave it alone, because it torque converter is essentially that, just converts torque. So if you're not making enough torque, it's not going to go up that high. Also, too, it has to do with your gear multiplication, your rear gear, and your tire size. Obviously, the numerically lower the gear, the stall is going to go up because it puts it under more load than numerically higher. So like your 411s or whatever, your stall is going to go down because it doesn't need as much torque to go. So I would just leave the 18 to 2000, and that's a decent cam, 206, 216, 477. That's going to be a good runner. I would just leave it alone. But it wouldn't hurt anything if you put a 25, 28 there. It wouldn't make any difference. The only time you'd really notice that is when you're going down the freeway and the car's under say 65 miles an hour, if it doesn't have a lockup, where you're actually getting drag on the engine, on the cross-sectional area, especially in a van, where you're having to push through the air. That's when you're going to notice the stall then. So I would try to go with the lower stall personally with that one.
Okay, well, and me, I'm like a very conservative torque converter guy. There's nothing worse than having too much torque converter and being outside of the power band and getting it all wrong. I'm much more of a less is more kind of guy. But okay, so let's see.
I always pick the smaller cam also.
Me too, but it was always the better head, right?
Yeah, that's right. Better head, smaller cam, good to go.
Yeah. Fat Race Mon repeats that Dallas sorcery. Don't forget about the Meowler plug wires. So
Nology. Remember the Nology wires? Remember those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't around long though. A split fire spark plug still exists to this day, believe it or
yes,
not.
they do. Yep. Sure
And then John says applause. Weren't we going to have an applause sign?
Yes, that was the switch pitch. That was the 6 minutes in. Okay. Oh, speaking of which, now we have to do, because Curse of Oak Island started again, so we have to give a Curse of Oak Island update. There's a very small few people that know this, but it's a 2-hour introduction, and right at the 59-minute mark, if you're watching it, it's a forfeit. And it's the first forfeit of the whole season, and it went down a rabbit hole, and it kept going, and each fur was a long one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then watch Curse of Oak Island.
Well, what's so funny is like you bring up Curse of Oak Island, but what our viewers might not know is that Shane and I have our own Oak Island that we're gonna we talked about going for.
Yes.
So,
but see, here's the thing though, is that we know for a fact it's there. These people,
yes.
There's the difference. This is like kind of a Oak Island's
the
like
farm on a question mark.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This one we know it's there.
It's
somewhere,
there. And
it's there.
Is the payout as big as Oak Island? No, not even close. But is it a really cool piece of automotive history? Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
one
of these days we'll get
on. And I can't let the cat out of the bag. One day you guys will tune in to either Mr. Rodder's Neighborhood or Slant Daily Garage, or maybe even both, and Professor P and I will be fishing. And you'll be like, what in the world is going on here? Okay. 38 Racing says Dallas 65 to 67 were they used later. No, they discontinued switch pitch after 67 because the cost way outweighed the benefit. It was a carryover from the Dynaflow days, and you definitely didn't need it when you had that much torque from the current big blocks at the time. Okay. Let's see. Do we have another question here? Uh-oh. So Andy says he's gathering 5-second parts for Casper.
Ooh. That means he's probably going to be pushing the button.
Yeah, and he's also like, you guys got to remember, Casper is like no lightweight at all, right? And I mean, it's like that's a big feat when you're talking something shaped like a box that weighs 4,000 plus. That's a big feat.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dylan Levi says that, whoa, Casper's getting them good parts. It's going to be an awesome achievement, man. I'll be cheering you on. I think it would be great. Yeah.
That's going to be awesome. I got to tell you, your first 5-second pass is always something.
Let's see. Clayton's Toolbox says, I know there's a difference between using a torque plate versus without when boring an engine. But if the machinist doesn't use a torque plate, will you lose some power?
Well, here's what are we doing? See, if this is a street car, it's not going to notice anything. Look, I love torque plates, but they have their place. You remember they didn't use those from the factory in these cars, in a Slant 6 or 318 or 340. They have their place, and it really depends on what you're doing. If you're putting if you're putting studs and you're bolting down heads and you're putting a ton of power to where it's trying to pull those studs out of the block, use the torque plate. If you're not, it's just a street car. Who cares? And there's a lot more money involved having it done with a torque plate, because you got to make sure the temperature is all the same, because that's going to insulate heat. Just what's your thoughts on it? I got to tell you, I've done them both ways.
When you're doing an absolute race piece, and you want every little horsepower, the torque plate is where it's at. Because what happens is when you put the torque plate on, it's similar to the head, right? Mm-hmm. So it just keeps the bore square with the bolts in it. Okay. Yep. So it's pulling the way it normally would pull with the bolts or the studs in there. And then it machines and then hones it to the correct shape with torque applied to the bolts. And it's supposed to make a few more ponies. Probably in reality, what it does, it may make a couple more ponies, 2, 3, 4, but it probably helps in longevity for over anything else, ring seal for extended periods of time.
High RPM is where I notice is a ring seal on high RPM. It keeps them from fluttering as much as far as blow by. But if you run a vacuum pump, I've also done this too, is we didn't torque plate one and we put a vacuum pump on it, or just an evac onto the exhaust, and we didn't see any power. Basically, the only power that we saw, it could have been dyno flutter. You know what I mean? Just you're talking like 1 or 2, but 1 or 2 one time and then 1 or 2 less the next time.
That's where we got to get out of this standard of trying to use a dyno to measure all this stuff.
Yeah,
because a dyno really, it's not like when you drive the car. There's a different feeling like when you drive the car, and that's where I think, if you really wanted to get down to the nitty gritty, it needs to be passes at the track.
But right? But at the same time, then you're up to temperature.
Well, air is different. Wind is different. I mean, there's all these different variables.
Yeah. Right? My car's, the blue car is within a 10th. And I've had it on a cool day and the worst muggy day. When I went to go see Joe at Newport, I was a 10th slower when it was like 90 something degrees outside and 90% humidity. It was terrible.
So John says, honing a tapered block with gasoline while smoking in a schmedium t-shirt. That's a forfer.
That's a forfer. Exactly. But it would be like this: honing a tapered block with gasoline while smoking in a medium shirt. Could it be? And then it just goes on to this thing. And the thing is too, is that how long these each fur was, instead of honing a tapered block, it was like this, like paragraph, almost like 3 sentences. And then it was like this big, long, drawn out, like honing a tapered block with gasoline. It just, I was blown. I had to watch it 3 times, and I was like, man, I'm going to definitely see this. So Oak Island updates for the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or however long it goes.
Well, Dakota's got his Pontiac 400 running real good with the Kaufman Racing heads. So congrats, buddy. I'm hoping she pulls like a freight train.
Yeah.
That's what should happen. Andy Wood says, this is no joke. I was at the track and ran into a well-known YouTube racer, was running E3s on a nitrous motor. I just slowly walked away.
Perfect. Yeah. Don't say a
All
word.
that heat.
And the thing is too, is a person like that, you don't even say nothing to him. Just look at it and pretend like, oh yeah, awesome. And don't even just walk away. I used to try to help people, not anymore.
Okay, A Cove says, when braking in a flat tap cam, at what point in spring pressure do you swap to a lighter spring for braking? What in the world is going on here?
That comes down to ramp rate. Typically, you're going to want to have, under 100 pounds. So I would try to be about 70 to 90 pounds on the seat. Preferably, 150 to under 200 pounds over the nose, if you can. But it really comes down to ramp rate, because what it is that you're trying to polish it. You're trying to get it when it goes over the nose. Is what you're trying to do. Is you're trying to wipe that in without wiping the top off, because that's actually how it doesn't wear, and it's just got transfer material from one to the other. That's all you're trying to do.
Okay, well, me personally, I'm very conservative when it comes to breaking in a camshaft.
Mm-hmm.
But my line is drawn when it's like when you go from single spring to double spring. I'll run single springs if it's. I don't care what the number is for the single spring.
Yeah.
I'll run the single spring, and that way I don't have to change them again. I don't have to add them in. I don't have to put them in. I don't have to do any of that stuff. And there's no real benefits, I don't think, to running the multi-spring combo. That's where you and I talked about this, and swapping to like a beehive or a conical style. That's like the best money spent, man. You take so much weight off of that. That the spring doesn't have to work as hard, so it can use less spring.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I whenever I do a Slant 6, I have a set of stock Slant 6 springs. I put those in, and they're weak, because factory Slant 6 is like 80 pounds on the seat, so they work good.
Well, I got John Wilburn says, Andy, I bet the same guy uses a torch on his N2O bottles. Yeah, dude.
I've seen that. I've seen that at the track.
That's a southern thing.
Yes.
I remember being in Mobile, and this guy blew like literally the back of his car off. It killed this dude that was using a torch on the bottle.
Wow.
But golly, I've never seen anything like that in my life. Because it's like we were just standing in the pits and boom. And I mean, like the concussion on it, I think, is probably about like, well, it'd be on a Navy ship, it would be like a 5-inch gun going off.
I was gonna say like a 10-pound bomb, maybe.
Oh yeah, dude, it was pretty bad. I mean, the literally, like, the quarter panel was hanging off the car, the trunk lid was flayed open, and where this dude was at was like just shoes, right?
Yeah. You know that I saw that my only like explosion I saw in a car was remember when Hondas used to put the batteries in the passenger side up by the firewall there?
Oh yeah.
So this was like in the mid 90s, and this guy came in, and I was a parts jockey, and you could smell this thing burning, like you could smell the sulfur, right? And I'm like, dude, that's hydrogen gas. Do not put a jumper cable to it. The guy reached over, and I didn't look, and when it went on there, it sparked, and he still had the jumper cables in his hand, but the battery had blown up. It filleted the hood back over to the other side, and his arms were like crooked because they had blown and broken. He didn't blow them off, but they were blown and crooked. And yeah, that was crazy to see. So I saw that like right there. That was something.
Let's see here. So Andy says he can tell you from firsthand that torque plates make no difference on a mod motor, and that you would think the mod motor would make a difference, because isn't that an open deck surface like the Hondas? I think they are. I think those mod motors are, like, where the top of the deck of the block is not flat; it's like open, like the Hondas, where the sleeves just kind of sit in there.
Yeah. And I'm glad that Andy said that too, because I can tell you right now, on a small block Mopar, I don't do them on mine. Now on mine, because I put concrete in it, I bolted heads onto it when I did the concrete. That could be why. But we checked it before and after, and it made no difference. So it's not worth it to me.
Okay, so Buick Smith is saying, my uncle, a machinist, once told me that the only torque plate in hone if they are going to run studs instead of bolts. Any truth to this?
Yes.
I would say that the studs, I do know for a fact the studs pull differently. They apply, they apply,
force pressure, more tension.
Differently than they do a bolt, because the bolt will be all at the head and the threads, right?
Twists.
And then on the stud is all right at the head, only at the head surface area, right?
It's on the washer. So what he's talking about is that when you put a stud in there, you're actually when you're torquing down the bolt, all the friction and the torque is at the top, and you're pulling down on it. But with a bolt, you're twisting it, and you're twisting it from a top point, so it's like a drive shaft. So you'll get movement up here with no movement down here. That's why I always torque and then back off and then do a retorque on it, so that way you get rid of that twist in there. But it will settle. It definitely will settle if you're using a bolt.
Let's see. All right. It's Katji says some blocks are different according to Mr. Powell. FEs apparently distort bad compared to LSs. And that's weird, because the LS has like considerably a lot more bolts than the FE.
A lot less. The LS is just doesn't have 10. Well, no, it's got 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's got 14 because it's got 4 up on top, doesn't it? 16, 18?
I think what FE?
Oh, no. I was talking about LS.
6 bolts per cylinder.
6 bolts per cylinder. Yes, that's right. Because that's right. It's just got the 4 main ones and the 2 smaller ones. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Schmidt says UTG just heated a bottle that way on camera. I thought, holy mackerel, Batman, that's crazy.
Wow. For real? He did that on
Yeah, probably.
Wow. Man.
Let's see. 2 Hacks Jeff says he's about to start an engine build project called the DZ292. It's my take on the 283 with the specs from the 302. Sweet. That's cool, man. That's going to be a good running motor. Oh, Andy says the mod motors are closed deck, so it's just the Coyotes that are open. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, if anyone's watching this, never use a torch on a nitrous bottle, ever. If you get it too hot in one little section, that's all it takes.
Yeah, and then all of the pressure comes out in one spot.
Yes, it's usually right where you're holding the torch. And then at that point, it's pure oxygen. Oxygen is not going to burn, but anything that's around it, it's putting a lot of oxygen that can burn. There's a lot of potential there. And so then anything plastic, anything just becomes a
let's face it, okay? I'm gonna be honest here. The people heating nitrous bottles with a torch generally don't have a blow-off valve, and they also generally don't have any of the safety requirements for their fuel cell, which vents into their trunk, right? Which is literally a fuel source for nitrous oxide with an open flame. So, I mean, you're asking for a lot of stupidity there. Like, you really have the possibility of making something very bad. But I'm glad Deke shows up at the No Name Nationals.
Yeah.
Okay. Tall Garage says, hey, Dallas, how thick do you think a crank trigger wheel should be? I'm thinking like 5mm. I have no experience in this at all. And when you talk to me in 5mm, like, you might as well tell me in clepazides, because I can know like how thick that is. Oh, yeah. Well, hold on.
I have to convert it. So for me to understand,
I found a 10mm wrench today on the side of the road.
5 divided by 25.4.
Of this, so it'd be half of that.
So it's 198. So that's how I have to do it. So for me to understand,
okay, so it's almost a quarter of an inch.
Yeah. So I can tell you, I've got a couple of them. I have one that's a quarter of an inch, and I have one that's 3/8 of an inch. There are 2 different versions of different crank triggers, and the one that I have is both of them. All of them are flying magnet style. So,
to tell you the truth, I have an answer for this. Look at your pickup magnet that you're using, and how wide is that magnet? That'd make it at least that wide. Right.
Well, my magnet on the blue race car is really big. It's about,
is it really?
Yeah.
Just the actual magnet or the mounting surface? I'm thinking the actual magnet's pretty small.
You can't see the magnet because it's behind plastic.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so that shows my ignorance on that whole thing, because
it's okay. Actually,
Yeah,
you know what?
I
Actually,
totally don't know.
I
But I
have
was
one.
just
Hold on.
throwing on an educated guess there. That's a bit. I'm sorry. All right.
So it's that thick, right there.
Oh wow, that sucker is thick.
So this is for my Slant 6. This is a 3 crank trigger that we made, flying magnet style. So, but yeah, that's about 1/4 of an inch right there. It's
Well, and
aluminum.
an LS is considerably thinner, and I'm sure the one in a Gen 3 Hemi is pretty thin, right?
Yes. Now, but see, that's in a different style though. That's going to be inside of an engine, where you have when it's external, you have a lot. They're usually only going to have like say 4 magnets, where those ones are running on a Hall effect. So it's a whole different type of
Oh,
magnet.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah, Miss Catgy says, luckily the nitrous oxide didn't liberate itself from the pressure vessel. I wonder if he would have got a no. I don't know. He probably would have got a copyright strike. Let's see. Andy says, never use a torch. I did it 20 years ago. That's why. Okay. So I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. That's 100% why I don't buy nitrous stuff used. 100%.
Exactly why I buy a brand new bottle is because of that right there.
Yeah, because you don't know how many times the torch has been applied to that, and you don't want to be the sucker that eats it. So, Ron Ward says, when I was working tech for NMCA, I DQ'd a race for heating a bottle in the staging lanes with a torch. He threw a fit. It's your call, Ron.
Yeah,
But I think it's a good statement to make. That shit's unsafe. It's like really unsafe, and you're taking everybody's life in your hands around you because you wanted to be cheap and not buy a bottle heater. Let's see. Nick the Bandman says, tech question. I used to not care. Now I care. Tons of money spent. When I start my new engine, set the timing and check for leaks. How quickly do I need to get load on it to seat the molly rings?
Well, I would do the 20 minutes first, breaking the cam, and then after that, just if you can late at night, get on the freeway or some sort of highway, go accelerate up to 50 miles an hour, then let off the throttle, come all the way down to 20, and just do that for a few miles, and that will seat the rings.
I was always told that seating rings is almost instantaneous anymore with the ring technology that they have.
Yes,
I don't know how true that is.
But you're right on that. If it's like say like the Gen 3 Hemi that's going to go in the 68 Dart or whatever, but on the older tech, they still have like the older style, the big thick rings that have the the same dingleberry type of hone. It's going to take a little while. And so
this is a 351 Windsor that's got 96 or 7 pistons in it with the thin rings on the 351 Windsor.
This is all the super thin molly rings and all that.
Napier molly rings, yeah.
Oh, start the damn thing up and let her go.
Yeah, I think they're going to break in almost instantly on those thin rings.
So what I would do, his name's Nick, right?
Yeah, Nick the Van Man.
Oh, Nick, just do a compression test or a leak down test beforehand, and then drive it, and then just keep doing it. And you'll see it get better and better and better, and then it'll get to a point where it doesn't get any better. The rings are broken. That's exactly what I do. I even did that on the blue race car. I seated the rings up and down the street here in the neighborhood.
Let's see here. Michael Schmidt says DIY how to plateau hone. I don't even know what plateau hone is. I've never even heard that term.
Neither have I.
Oh, well, and see, there's something new for me and Professor P both.
Never heard of it.
Let's see. Bear Rose Garage says, due to deals I could not pass up, I need help. 11-to-1 compression, 460, big block Ford, tunnel ram, C6, big mother thumper cam or comp cam with Pro Mag hydraulic lifters, 30-inch drag radials on a 2,800 pound 54 F4. What converter and gear for 8th mile? Okay.
What's the specs on the camshaft?
That's what I was just going to say. You need the cam specs before anybody can give you anything on that. And then what's the intended purpose?
Well, he says for a converter for a gear for an 8th mile. And it's a pretty light
I guess
vehicle.
It's just drag car then, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, for something like that, 28 mean, you can get away with like even a 411 or a 390, something like that. I run a 411 in the Cookie Monster. The 411 is a really popular gear for really fast cars.
Dizzy says he put an Excel GM HEI ignition module on the Vagrant.
Nice.
So now he's got an electronic ignition for low buck.
Well, now
just make sure you got that module mounted somewhere that's a good heat sink.
Yes.
Pull the heat out. They'll run forever as long as you keep them cool.
That's right. I put them and then put them on the fender. So put the heat sink and then put the heat sink on the fender. Put it on the fender on the part where the tire's at, because just the spinning of the tire will cool that part of the fender. Even if it's hot outside, it'll keep that module 70 degrees all the time. For real, it works.
Ron Boards puts this up. 5 millimeters equals 0.001 of a rod. Kind of like 5 liters equals 20 thousandths hogshead.
Right. I like that, Ron. Perfect. Yeah. Look, I have to design stuff in millimeters sometimes. And man, it's a pain because I literally have to use this. And all the kids coming out of school they're like, hey, that thing's about 15 millimeters. And this, and I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? What's 15 millimeters, man? What is that?
Dude, when I got orders to Australia, I flew in to Sydney Airport, right? And I rented a car and I drove down to Canberra, which was where the U.S. Embassy was, and they had to give me like an in briefing to the country, like what's acceptable to do and what's not acceptable to do. So don't do this in public, and you're really going to offend somebody, or don't pick this bug up because it will kill you. Because like virtually there's a huge list of stuff that will kill you in Australia, like including Australia itself. I think you can literally pick up Australia and hit yourself on the head and die from it. But I got to the airport and I get the card. I said, all right, I gotta go to Canberra. How far is that? And the lady's like, I don't remember what she told me, like 200 kilometers or something. And I'm like, I looked at her like, oh my God, I have no idea how to reference that, right? Like, I guess less than 300. So I started driving and I got lost, and I pulled over and I went to a little, what they call a petrol station, right? You go to your petrol station. I asked, hey, I'm trying to find this, and I'm going to this exit. And the guy's like, oh, it's 5K down here, turn right, and then another 2K and turn left. And I'm like, like I should have never asked. I should have just drove around. Like, I don't have a frame of reference for kilometer. I don't.
Just remember, 80 kilometers equals about 50 miles an hour. So, that's about how I do it. So if someone tells me something's about 160, I'm thinking, okay, it's about it's about 100 miles.
Well, and what's funny is like Canadians, they can literally do this, like, because all their cars had American speedometers with a like a kilometer reference in it.
Yeah.
Right. But we didn't have that until like, when was that? Like the mid 80s. And then in the 90s, they went to like digital dashes and all that stuff. And then it went away. You could select kilometer or mile an hour. And I've never seen it since. So I still have like no frame of reference.
That's funny.
D150's asking, what's the major game with the crank trigger?
Consistency, timing, and also due to the spark scatter. Yeah, here's the thing: is that your crank is always going to be on, but if you're running it off of especially a distributor, on most vehicles, the distributor's in the back. So, like say small block Chevrolet or small block Mopar, so you're going to have slack in the timing chain, then you're going to have slack or twist in the cam gear all the way to the back. Then you're going to have a gear on a gear. So there's a lot of slack that can happen up to about 5 to 10 degrees. If you're running a nitrous vehicle, that 1 or 2 degrees can make all the power or explode. You don't want to have that 10-degree variable. So a crank trigger is a necessity to have it work.
Let's see. Dylan Levi says that I literally watched a budget guy use a heating pad, like for sore muscles, as a bottle heater. People who use torches are just lazy, in my opinion. The torch, okay. The whole purpose of the torch, they used to have a bottle heater. I had one that was really awesome. I don't know if anybody even makes it anymore. It was literally like a big metal heat sink, and it had like a heater on it, a heating element on it, and then also had a fan on it, like a computer fan, and it would heat and cool the bottle and keep it at an exact temperature. That's the purpose of heating the bottle.
Yeah,
you don't heat the bottle every time. No. It's just when you get what it is people be lazy and not changing the bottle out, not having a second bottle to put in there. So the pressure will get low when the temperature goes down and you got 3 or 4 passes on it. The pressure will go low. Well, when you get the pressure low, the car's fat and lazy and won't run well, and usually gets the doors caved in. So what you do is you heat the bottle up real quick, brings the pressure up, and then you can make another pass.
Yeah.
But the sad part is when you do it the first time, you might not do anything to the bottle. You come back for the second time, it's even more flat. And then you spend more time heating the bottle. And that's where it really starts screwing the bottle up, when you get so lazy to change the bottle out and put one with fresh nitrous in it.
Yeah. And one thing too is that if it's not at least a warm temperature, I think 92 degrees is the ideal temperature for a nitrous bottle, I think, off the top of my head. But when you're going down the track and you're and that it's actually going out, the bottle will actually get cooler. So the pressure will actually drop as you're going down track. So like, let's just say you leave the line at say 1,000 PSI or 900, it's going to drop a little bit as you go down the track. And then as you shut the nitrous off, then the pressure is going to come back as the bottle warms back up. So the idea of is to get it to 92. So when you go down the track, it only drops to like say 80 or 85.
Oh, so plateau hone is, I think what he's saying here, Tall Garage is saying that it knocks the highs off the crosshatch of the hone.
No, that's when the bar, that's one of those flat hones.
Yeah, you can't do that at home. You can actually buy one of those apparatuses to do it at home.
Don't use it.
But they're not that good. You want to use the one on like the Rottler machine. Yes. That's the one you want to use. The one at home, I mean, you could probably use it once and get away with it.
I wouldn't, because the thing is you're going to take too much off. If you spend too much time in one section, you'll taper a bore instantly with one of those. That's why if I'm going to do anything, I'll just dingle ball, but it's only like, 10 in and out and then call it good. All you're trying to do is just score it up slightly, and you're not trying to change the shape of it. But those ones right there will actually change the bore.
And then 2Hex here has a pretty good idea. And he said, I did a video on plateau honing using flex hones. That probably would work better than those fixed hones.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I leave up to the machine shop. And if I'm running some hardcore rings, I'll tell them what kind of rings I'm running so that they get the surface correct in the bore.
Yeah.
But that's way beyond my scope and capability. Most of the time, I'm the kind of guy that's like stock pistons with new rings on it and dingle ball hone the block and send her out the door. If I'm not doing that, then I'm doing the full-blown race stuff where I'm not trying to half-ass the machine work. If I'm spending money on the machine work, I'm spending money on the machine work,
you're way back there.
I'm way behind.
I'm going to jump ahead. So Bear Rose gave us the center sections of 390, and then he says that he wasn't sure if that was deep enough for that cam, and the cam's 242, 257 on a 107 lobe separation angle with 30-inch tires. Okay, with a 30-inch tire, that's definitely not enough gear. If you're going to run, like, say, a 28 tire, that's a 411. So if you're going to go with 30s, I would probably go to I would try to go to at least 430s or 456s if you're going to run a 30-inch tire. But that's not really a big camshaft for that big of an engine. That's really going to be kind of like your hot street type of deal. It's going to sound really big because of the 107, and it's going to make a lot of torque. Personally, because it's a light vehicle, I would just, whatever you have, run it. Run what you have right now. Don't change anything. See what the car wants. If you've already got the parts, throw it in there and let it go. On my 68 Dart, I really want a 373 gear in it. It's got 323 in it. I'm just going to run it and see what happens, and then make changes from there. And that's what I would do in your situation.
This was all the converter recommendation, right? Wasn't it?
Yep.
A converter recommendation? So with that camshaft, you can literally put
a 2500.
A 2500 would actually be really ideal in that thing.
2500 would be perfect.
What you find is that 2500 will cover a lot of stuff until you start to get to race applications, right? And then it's just not enough because it won't generally idle, and then it won't get out of the power band quick enough or into the power band quick enough.
My guess, with a 460 with that cam, you're looking at something from 25 to 3000 to maybe 6 to 6500 with that camshaft. I would even run a dual plane with something like that. It'd be
that would be really almost drivable.
Yeah, you could drive.
I would do the 390 gear. That thing would be in a 54. That thing would be a freaking just a killer on the street.
Yeah, leave it alone. If you're going to drive it on the street, an 8th mile run it, run it at just what you got, put it in there, and let that thing eat, man. I'm telling you, you might have a hot setup with that. Just get a 2500 stall.
Tell you what, this is in a big block Ford. I don't know. Kim Barrows, he does a lot of stuff with Ford big blocks. Well, just Ford stuff in general. If you got like a 302 Ford C6 converter laying around, that would be the one I'd use right there. A 302 Ford, or maybe even a 306 for a C6. If you're running a C6 transmission, this thing, that's what I would do. Is I would run that. Let's see. Okay, well, I'm way behind. I was way behind up here.
Yes, that's why I was jumping ahead.
All right. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Val was asking, hi boys, sorry for being late. Can the nitrous bottle heaters overheat a bottle? It depends.
Well, they have a pressure switch on them.
Yeah, they actually have. I might. If you have a nitrous, they have heaters, and they have heaters with a little element on them, and they actually have a switch so they'll cycle on and off. And the heaters don't get really hot; they're only like 90 degrees. So if it's like a really warm day outside, and you put the heater on, you're like, this thing's not working. It's because it's probably going to keep it cooler. But the ones that I have, has got it's got a little sensor. It turns it on and off. Yeah, I'll actually show it's a ZEC system. So, and I rarely use it because I've been racing. Every time I race the damn thing, it's it's already 900 degrees outside. So I've never used the bottle.
I never even turned the heater on.
Yeah, in fact, I've actually had to put it in a cooler because I had to get the pressure down. It was like
let me tell you how I did this in the South racing with Nitrous. Okay, I had 2 bottles, and I'd have one in the car, right? Like when you get to the track, I would take the bottles out. I would set them in the sun and let them get nice and warm, and then you go over there and feel them. And if it's like hot to the touch, put the bottle underneath the car in the shade and let it cool for a little bit, because you want it just to the point where it's like it feels like your hand like same temperature, right? Yeah. And then throw that in the car. Run your 2-3 passes. Do the same with the other bottle while you're running the car. So make sure you're kind of moving in and out of the sun. After you get 3 passes in, take your bottle back out, the first bottle, and you set it in the sun. You take the new bottle that you've already been kind of meandering the temperature, throw it in the car, run 3 more passes with that one, and then you kind of adjust the temperature. Now, when you get it warm, like I said, the first go around, you wanted it to feel like it was your hand, like 98.6, like 100 degrees, right? When you go to put it in the second time, you want it warm to the touch. And generally what you're going to find is when it's warm to the touch, the pressure is going to be about 1100 psi to 1000 to 1100. You might have to bleed some of that off, because when you start to get over like 1200 psi, the solenoids won't open anymore. Yeah, not consistently. The nitrous side, there'd be so much pressure on the backside of that solenoid, it flutters. Yeah, it can't get it open. So that actually happened. That actually happened to me the first time I went down the track with the nitrous in my car. It was at Jackson, and it was so hot that day. And I opened the valve, got up there, and I hit the nitrous, and I was like, it just didn't feel like it hit. I was like, even though that was 100 shot, it should have done something. The car actually went slower, and I looked at the air fuel. It was so much pressure in it because I had it in the trunk, and I had it at like 90 degrees. But when I put it in there and I was getting up to the line, it had ramped way up, and it got so pressurized that the solenoid wouldn't open against that. Yeah, we used to, there's some cheater ways around that. We used to take a wet washcloth, put it on your solenoids, keep the solenoid cool. You know, you just dunk a washcloth in your cooler with the ice water in it, throw it around your solenoid, and then right there at the nozzle where it's coming in, it will lose some of that pressure. Yeah, I've actually, when I was with Joe, I was actually putting my nitrous bottles in ice water, and I've actually noticed, that I've done it both ways. I've done it with hot, and I've done it with cold, and I got to say it's more consistent when it's cold. And I'm going to tell you why is because when it's hot, it's going to cool down while it goes down the track, right? So your pressure is X, and then it's going to cool down. But if it's already, it's going to condense though then too, right? Yeah. So if it's already cold, the pressure doesn't drop. The pressure stays more stable. Yeah. And so that's what I was doing when I was at No Name the last time. I was keeping my bottles cold,
and I was running them cold. Now,
weren't you putting them in your fridge or your freezer?
Yeah, ice chest. I had an ice chest. Yeah.
Oh.
So I was putting them in my ice chest. So that was, yeah. So I was actually running. I tried it hot. I tried it hot at Jackson. I tried it cold at different places, and I noticed that it was more consistent when it was cold with a plate system. Now with a fogger might be different, but it was more consistent cold on a plate system, and that was just for me though. So.
Let's see. So Dylan Levi said he's in search of a 4-inch bore, 927-pin stock compression height for LS or 6-liter LS forged pistons. I can get cheap rods or use what I got depending on how I feel, but I need forged pistons. The only thing I have to say about this is womp womp. Dude, buy good parts. Buy good parts. You're to the point now where you're gonna blow everything up.
Yeah.
You learn the hard way. So buy good rods. Let's see.
Bear Rose, there you go. Keeps the lights on. There you go. There's a thing. Keeps the lights on. Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah, Bear Rose hit us with a. Okay, so let me click on this dude. Oh man, it must be. Am I already behind again? Let's see. Yeah. Thanks again, guys, for helping us with this. You saved me a few bucks, so here's a few of those. Do you all to keep the lights burning? Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Kim.
I'm a big favor of running what you got, and I'm gonna speak on something real quick. Is that you notice that there's a blue car missing and there's a green car here? Well, I'm building this engine for Plan Z. The head that's on this car can handle 520 lift, right? And it's been ported, mild porting, pocket porting and back cut valves and so on and so forth. But on this end, this car, this is Lizard King. This is a driver. I've got another head over there. So I'm going to do all the stuff and take that head off. I'm going to, do my own decking on it, then put on Plan Z, since that's technically the race car head. And then I'm going to put this other one that's got a bigger chamber on it. So it's going to lower the compression on this engine so I can get away with, running not mid-grade and not have to back the timing off to run 87. It doesn't diesel every once in a while when I run 87. But I'm going to run with the stuff I got. So yes, I'm a big proponent. If you've got it, run what you have, see where you're at, and then move from there. So that way you don't spend a bunch of money on crap you don't need.
Oh, well, okay. So I was wrong on something here, but we'll get to it here in a second. Sure. Michael Schmidt says, saw something cool at Irwindale Raceway. They had a final nitro day before it closes. It's sundown, 75, 50s, 60s, 70s.
Nice.
Nitro cars came out for a cackle fest all at the same time. Flames everywhere. That's too bad that Irwindale is going away. The guy that used to do a Match Race Madness with this, Steve Sherman, was working there for a while. I don't know if he still is or not. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years. But it's unfortunate to hear that. You know what else I heard today? Hemmings is gone, or like going away.
Really?
They're cutting back the number of magazines. Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to be before they're completely gone, but Barrow says that he has a 302F 250C6 stock converter. I was already planning on using for that as well. A damn good thing I finally have a Wednesday night off. You'll save me even more on this budget build. Oh, perfect. And who normally agitates Dylan Levi says, oh no, Levi has went to the dark side and got a 6-liter. And then he says this, Ken, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. I'm going NA. Now, I just said want. I gave you a hard time about it and buy good parts. But that's because I thought you're still going to have that big, the Chinese whirly boy on there.
I think
I'm glad to hear that you're going NA.
Yeah.
It's going to last you seasons.
I think he might be doing the crazy threes or the whatever.
Oh,
might be doing
the Super Threes. We need to get that together. Yeah, that 6-liter would work in there, but it'd have to be standard bore, right? And that's what he's looking for, isn't it? A standard bore piston, 364. Yep. Yeah, but I think it may be slower for you, but it's going to be a lot better on the fun meter.
Oh yeah,
because you won't be fixing stuff all the time.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. And here he goes. You're not building a car for the new class, are you? Well, that's interesting. Let's see. No, my car will work with all turbo stuff removed. Okay. Let's see. James. These guys are some nitrous gurus. So colder you can keep the nitrous, the more dense it is, and will make way more power. Just have to maintain the bottle pressure.
Yep. That's exactly what I noticed.
You know, the trick used to be for this, if you were going racing, the way I would do it was I would go fill up my nitrous bottles. And way back when nitrous was fairly new, they would hammer the nitrous in there with an air hammer. That's what they would use. Well, I don't remember what I was watching. I watched something. Oh, King of the Hill. And he was talking about propane and propane accessories. Well, it just so happens we had a guy where I worked at. He was a reservist, Navy reservist, and he sold propane for a living, propane and propane accessories, right? So I asked him about it, like, hey, it said on here that you can cool the bottle and transfer it at your house. And he's like, yeah, that's how we fill bottles, is we cool the bottles, because what happens is it's science. It's like Bernoulli's law or Bernoulli's law. I can't remember, but it's based on a temperature differential between the two. And what it'll do is it'll transfer the liquid to the coldest temperature, right? And so we started freezing the nitrous bottles. That's another reason why I don't buy them used, is because after a bunch of those cycles, man, you start sweating that bottle.
I know.
Yeah.
So when you pick it up, when you're like, oh.
Yeah, because here's how cool it is. You take the bottle right out of the freezer, it would frost over immediately in the humidity of the air, right? And then you take it and fill it up, and you could watch all of that frost disappear on the outside of the bottle as the liquid's pouring in, and you can watch it run down the bottle, essentially.
Yeah,
down like the cylinder of it, and fill the bottle up as it's going. But that's also the only other time that I've got 11 pounds of nitrous in a 10-pound bottle.
Wow.
Is that when you freeze it? And James is right. If you can keep the bottle pressure up, the more dense it is, the harder the hit, right?
Yeah,
especially like right as the cylinder opens.
But the thing I've noticed though is that it's not necessarily off the line. It's from the 330 on is where I noticed it. That when it was colder, there was less from 330 difference to the end of the track. When it was hotter, there was more difference between 330 to the end of the track. But they off the line, the hotter bottle was faster. It seemed like off the line to 330, but the cooler bottle was faster from 330 on. So I was just like, well, I'd rather have the top end, because everybody, especially in like no prep, everybody's trying to take power away from the hit anyway. So that's why I started freezing them or getting them cold. I was going up there, I think, with 60-degree bottle temperatures, or 60. Yeah, it was 60 degrees. Yeah.
Well, and these, I would have to say that, you've heard it more than once. These guys probably know what they're talking about. Tall Garage is asking any more info on my new class. Well, this isn't technically a new class. Where we were kicking around, spitballing it to see if there'd be people that'd be interested in seeing it. And that's, so Shane and I are over the Thanksgiving weekend. We're going to meet up. We can probably write these rules down and get some kind of a reasonable framework for most of the stuff together, because that's what I'd like to do. And that way we can say, all right, guaranteed we're having the Super 3s class. This is what we're going to run. This is how it's going to work, right? I'm trying to decide. I don't think I'll be able to get my 63 together, because just the price tag on getting that thing together is going to be way cost ineffective. But right before I came on the show, I had an epiphany on what maybe I'm going to bring to No Name Nationals next year, and it won't be the T-Bird.
So
it might be something different.
Yes. And yeah, so here's the thing. Here's what our plan is. We're going to meet up. We will definitely have the rules before Thanksgiving, and I'm pretty sure John Wilburn's going to be going live the Friday after Thanksgiving. Technically, the only day that you can actually start hanging Christmas lights. So on that Friday, I'll make sure that John has the rules by that Friday after Thanksgiving. So that way the rules can be posted and we can go over them, and I'll probably do the live with them, or me and Dallas might. So that way we can talk about them, why we did things and whatnot. And that way we can kind of explain them for everyone. So that way people can get their build started now for this and get testing at the beginning of the year.
Okay, so Dick the Van Man says, last tech question on my 351, have a quick fuel brawler 650, mechanical secondary on an Edelbrock Performer 351 with heat riser blocks. Should I bolt the carb down and go, or use a spacer?
Spacer. Always use a spacer. Run a 1-inch open hole spacer every single time on a dual plane. It always makes more power every single time on our dynos.
All right. And you're right, and I apologize. I'm sorry. I was giving you crap. I thought you were going to turbo the crap out of that LS, and I figured we were just going to have a pan full of LS 6-liter parts. I mean, it would make one wicked ass pass, but it just make the one, and that's what I didn't want to see you do again this year. So, 2Hex Garage says Lizard King, my favorite singer of the 60s.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so A Cove sent us 20 bucks here. Keep on keeping on. Much appreciated. Hey, we appreciate you. That's how we pay the bills around here. All this
and John Wilburn, keep the lights
overhead
on.
Yeah, all this overhead is getting taken care of. So
right.
Yeah, I've already I don't know if I told you how well I'm trying to cut every dollar out during this whole divorce period thing, right? So I literally have the heat turned off at my house, and I have a space heater heating one room right now that I'm in, and that's all Perfect. It needs to stay warm. But man, is my freaking electric bill going to be rocking this month? It's going to be good. It might be down below $50. I'm hoping so.
Nick the Van Man, I'm going to jump ahead real quick. It says tech in response to the spacers. So 1-inch open hole spacer. So 1-inch open spacer. So no 4 holes, just an open spacer. What that does is it tricks it into thinking it's got a bigger plenum volume and allows it to share both sides, and it will make more mid-range and more top end power, guaranteed. Sorry.
Tell you what, Dylan Levi says he's talking with Nick the Van Man about having a cam, and he says, Nick, the cam I want has probably never been made. I do appreciate the offer. So if this is an NA 6-liter with a heavy car, man, I bet you the orange to donuts that
I've made the cams for him.
Well, I bet you the one he wants is probably, if it's NA.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think there's probably quite a few of them out there in a application for a 70s muscle car. Probably quite a few, I would assume. But I was going to say, once upon a time, I made a camshaft for a 430 Buick and a big Wildcat, right? And that sucker would be like, we called it the BMF. But that'd be a pretty good cam. But that you're looking for a roller, and but yeah, Professor Peace, the guy, I'd be messaging right now if you want your own cam.
Levi, you got my cell number. Hit me up. Tell me what you got. We'll get you set up.
Okay. Well, there you go. Levi's Backyard Performance says, who would you say is a company that made the most power out of a hydraulic roller cam? Preferably a company at PRI. I got questions and not good ones. Look, okay, here's something that I know for a fact. Off-the-shelf cams, forget about them. Okay, you're going to be guaranteed if you take off-the-shelf cam and you custom ground an off-the-shelf cam to the same specs, you're going to gain 15 to 20 horsepower on that cam.
Just from air into the curve.
Yes. Just for and it's going to be the same exact numbers. All right.
Yep. I did it for Dallas.
Yeah. And we used to do it way back when I was doing 5-liter Ford stuff, they had a class called factory stock. Those are the ones that you want to pay attention to, because if you're building an NA application, those guys are going to figure something out that you had never even thought of. And that class was one of the deals. You had to run a Ford E-cam, or it actually could be a letter cam. It had to be a Ford part number cam. But what the guys had figured out was the E-cam with 1.7 rockers on a GT40P head on a 302 that was bored 30 over, so a 306. It was like the ticket. But if you take the same exact specs, the Ford Motorsport part number cam over to comp cam, and you had them put it on a billet roller, it already gained 10 horsepower over the cast iron core camshaft, just because everything was consistent. All the duration was the same on every lobe. The lift was the same on every lobe. The other thing was the core didn't flex.
That's a big one.
Yeah, like and when you wind it up, that's where you notice that's where it. What you'll find is if you look at dyno pulls and you see like the little divots at the top, that's where you're starting to get things with valve train issues.
Yeah.
And generally, like that core flex is one of them. Push rod flex is another one.
Harmonics.
Yeah, rocker arms. You can there's so much stuff you can learn. But what you want is you want a custom made camshaft for your converter, for your weight of your car, for what rear end gear you're running, for how tall the tire is, and how much the car weighs now. And once you get that cam made, then you get a call and make a custom converter for that camshaft. And why it's so really good.
And why it's so important to make sure that you give them the correct RPM range is a couple of things you got to remember is that if let's just say arbitrarily you're running a 280 duration cam at 50 at 7,000 RPM, that could be 270. At 8,000 RPM, that could be 260 degrees because you're going to get flex as it's opening. Because you're going to be flexing the push rod, you're going to get a harmonic, rock arms, all that stuff. And then when it comes down, the valve's going to bounce. So your duration actually physically gets smaller as the RPM increases. And we've seen that consistently on all engines on the Spintron. That's the reason why you got to go so big on the camshaft. Oh,
okay. Buick Smith says, and the LS camshaft is 100% kind of by itself because it's like a Gen 3 Hemi. They got so much port, right, that you can't get too greedy on lift because it'll freaking kill velocity through the heads and absolutely murder torque. So you
not so much on the LS though.
Oh, really? It's not as bad.
Not as bad. You can get away with a lot more on the LS than you can on the Hemi. You'll actually be about 10 degrees more on an LS than you will on a Hemi.
Just to make up that difference from the port velocity.
Yeah, exactly. Because the Hemi head has got such a better flowing head. And even though, and it's good velocity, but it's just so much CFM that you'll typically be in the 230 range on some of them, where on the LS, you'll be up in the 240 range typically.
Okay.
Not all the time, but typically. Factory head stuff.
That's the one thing you need to be aware of. It's like you can literally murder your torque on something. The old school hot rod stuff, like small block Chevrolet or small block Ford, you couldn't really do that to it. I mean, you could get greedy, but the greedy number would be like so high that you wouldn't even buy the camshaft anyway. But okay, so Buick Smith here is saying, question. My friend Aaron is on here, but on his phone, he has a bunch of questions for building a 331 Hemi, like cam regrind, lighter pistons, etc. Maybe he can jump in and ask some more. And that's fine. Matter of fact, this would be the second time that I remember us answering questions about exactly the 331 Hemi, where I think Shane weren't you regrinding somebody else's cam? It might have been Tall Ken's camshaft for his Hemi, right? Or you sent it somewhere else?
Yeah, he said, because he had to weld on it because it actually had a bunch of lobes that were I think it went out to webcam out in California.
Okay. Yeah. But as far as pistons go, the 331 Hemi is literally one of the ringers that nobody's aware of for the Screaming Threes class, because the head flows so good compared to the cubic inch size, right? So you can really wind a sucker up and make some serious power.
And the 331 is actually an anomaly. If it came in an industrial engine, they actually flow almost 400 or just over 400 CFM from the factory on the intake and gobs on the exhaust. They outflow the 354 and the 392 heads. There was a lot of people getting these 331 heads and putting them on the 354s and on the fuel cars of the 392s back in the day. But a 331, I can tell you right now, that would definitely, if someone can get one to rock. Here's the big problem with 331s, though. It's the valve train. And how the valve train works. You're going to spend a mint on valve train to get that RPM up there to make that thing RPM to 8,000 RPM. But other than that, it's a really good engine. Oh, and also too, it's kind of follows the same lines as a small block Mopar, so you're going to have some other issues with oiling, but yeah, you can work it all out.
Okay, so there's a couple of things here that I want to address. Like, so you get Levi's backyard performance. If carbs are so good, then why outlaw EFI? That would make my life easy. He's talking about the Screaming Threes class. Ken, same thing. Ken says that Levi's backyard performance. I that's supposed to say argued. till I was blue in the face. If EFI is so bad, then why be scared of it? It's not that we're scared. It has everything to do with tunability of the EFI, and that's the whole thing. Is like there is some expensive gains that if you have EFI, you have an advantage over somebody else because you can pull timing instantly as the car loses traction. You can have traction control devices, the whole 9 yards.
Fuel control.
You can't have that with a carburetor.
You can. It's called your right foot.
Well, yeah. Okay, there you go. But so here's the thing. We figured if not everybody can afford that, you just eliminate it, right? So you just make it as simple as carburetor. And what it is, I hate that you throw it out there that like, why are you so scared of it? Why are you so scared of not buying a carburetor, a used one, and put it on your car? Do you not know how to tune it?
I can say that the carburetor would it definitely levels the playing field because that way it takes all the electronics out, and that was the whole point of this, is to take the electronics out, so that way there was no traction control or any type of timing control or fuel control or anything like that. It was just to make it a race, and that way most people have carburetors laying around.
Yeah, I do want to see you guys out there because you and Dylan Levi are kind of cut from the same cloth. If you haven't noticed, that's why you guys argue all the time and give each other crap. Is because you're two of the same. You could probably be brothers if we didn't know any different. But the reality of it is like you guys bring a different perspective to this class. See, this class is nothing new. This would be like modified production in the late '60s. Or early 60s, actually, where they were, most guys were running like 327 Chevrolet. You weren't around then, and you never saw those run. So what you bring is a fresh set of eyes with the experience and knowledge that you have from the things that you work on today, which would actually help quite a bit in a class like this because it's all new. So you're not afraid to try new things and do something that's outside the norm of what the 60s modified would be like. That's my take on it. I think you guys would be a great addition to the whole thing. Let's see. Two Hacks says I'll have an engine for that class, just not a car yet. Dude, so there's a couple.
Team up with someone.
Yeah,
team up with someone.
I've said this before. Way back in like the 60s and 70s, it used to be common to have the two-name door, where you had two names on the door funding a race team. So 2 days ago, I'm still working on this EZ302 project, but this freaking 1985 Vet came up on Marketplace for $800. Okay. It was a 4+3 manual transmission car. And I'm like, how wicked would that thing be with that EZ302, right? Like screaming up through the gears, banging them on an 85 Vet that you care nothing about. I mean, they're ugly and it's like a face vet. Like, I don't know if you know what I mean by it. Remember the A-Team face had that vet? It's a face vet, right? So, so Nick the Van Man Tech in response for spacer, so a 1-inch open spacer as opposed to a 1-inch 4-hole, right?
That's what I was asked.
Oh, you already answered that one. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't mean to jump ahead, but he was asking that right away. So because I have it at the end of the chat, so I kind of watching as it goes.
Well, it's funny that Dylan Levi says my City Power company is going to love me. Yeah, kind of. But if you watch the video close enough, you'll see that the lights dim in this room when this heater comes on. But it's just, one room. So it's going to be good. We'll see what happens. The colder it gets, the less I could probably deal with it. But we'll find out. Just like right now, I'm cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like the next couple of days in the crock pot. So that's literally what I'm doing at the moment. Crock pot on low, and it's cooking away while we're on this live. So I'm trying to cut every corner I can. Okay, what's this here? Ron Ward says, should we tell Dylan about launcher cams, or should we just open the can of worms? Or just not open the can of worms? I don't know what is launcher cams.
Like cut nose cams, I think is what Ron's talking about. So like if you have a lift rule class, so what they do is instead of the cam going up and having a point on it, it literally goes up and
it's like an egg.
Yeah, and then so what they do is that you would set up the whatever you want your lift at. So I did this for a lot of super stockers, right? So they have to run like a 420 lift, right? So they check it 420 at the valve, right, as it's turning over by hand. But as you get the RPMs way up there, it will launch it. So it'll launch it, and then what you're going to do is you're going to launch it to coil bind, and then the coil bind slams it back down. So that way you can get your 600 lift when you're getting up near 8,000 RPM. So you'll have your 270 degrees duration at 50 and your high lift. So that's how they're getting the numbers. So yeah, but it destroys your valve train, but literally it makes your car go fast.
Well, okay. So Tall Garage, he's talking about his cam he had welded up from Webb. Say $1,200 to weld and grind it. But I got it, and I'm pretty happy. LL, now I need custom pistons. I'll get those at tax time. You know what's sad about this is like those Hemis like that. PAW. We've said this a couple times. The Bible. They had an entire section in that PAW Bible for Hemis, old Hemis like this, and most all that stuff is gone now because PAW is gone. Yep. And the only reason PAW is gone, it wasn't like mismanagement or anything like that. They refused to go to internet online shopping.
Yeah.
And that's what killed them. They were the best, like through mail order, the best.
You know what's going to fix this market, though, are those DLC lifters, because he doesn't have to use a cast iron cam anymore. At that point, you can go to your billet steel one. So you can run, like, say, a 5051.
You can go to copper core.
Yeah, you can go to copper core. You can run anything. Induction hardened. You can run whatever you want.
Yeah, that's going to be that, man. You could have one whipped up in an afternoon on a 5-axis CNC machine and just have it fucking pooped out and throw your lifters at it and have at it.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Ron Ward says, next up for the 333 class breaker point ignition.
Yeah. Oh, what? You're just there, man. That you're way back.
Oh, I'm already behind again.
What's the date? What's the time on that one?
I don't know. 8:12. So
you're only 5 minutes behind.
Let's see. Michael Schmidt says carbs are not scary anymore because you can use wideband O2 sensors to dial in the carbs safely, and you can get a Bluetooth distributor to dial in timing. Do it. It's easy and now affordable.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's as far as we want people to go with it. You know, most people who are going to run this class are going to lock out the distributor anyways because they're going to be 5,000 and above. So really it doesn't matter at that point. I don't care if someone has, a Bluetooth on that because you're really going to be locking out like 38 or something.
So Jason's Garage and RV Repair says, would a Fox body with a 5.3 with a carb fit this class? Okay.
It will not.
It has to be the manufacturer. Okay, the LS is the one that's a little bit weird, but it has to be the manufacturer of the engine is the manufacturer of the car. Right? So if you get a Ford, it's got a Ford in it. Now, where it gets weird with the LS, because it's a GM engine, way back when, 1975 or 6, was a lawsuit against General Motors about using like Oldsmobile engines in a Pontiac and Pontiac engines in a Chevrolet and stuff like that. And they ruled that they could do that because it's one corporation. But anything before 75, wasn't that our rule?
78.
78? Okay, anything before 78, if it's a Buick, it's got to run a Buick. If it's an Oldsmobile, it's got to run an Oldsmobile. If it's a Chevrolet, it's got to run a Chevrolet. Anything after 78, when it was the corporate ruling, you can use an LS engine.
Yep.
But
anything General Motors. Yes, yeah. General Motors. But that's the number 78. So yeah, but you can run a GM or Ford transmission, and you can run a GM or a Ford or a Mopar rear end. It doesn't matter. That can be bastardized. We don't care about that. We just want to, and sticks are welcome. We want stick shifts. In fact, I think in this class you'd probably be faster with a stick shift.
Well, what needs to happen is the stick shift is technically a tenth slower because you got to run all the gears, right? The easy way to fix that is the stick shift would be allowed a weight break of like 100 pounds would fix a tenth. That's the easy way to do that.
Yeah.
But SSR Performance says, I haven't seen rules posted. We haven't posted any. We're actually supposed to get together at Thanksgiving. We're going to iron out some rules and put them on paper. And then what we'll probably do is post them. And we'd like to have them done before John announces the No Name Nationals for 2025. And that way you can start building a car today based on the rules that we're going to throw out there for you.
Actually, I'm telling you right now, we will have them posted the Friday after Thanksgiving. And then I will make sure that John will have them so that way he can post them and let everybody know on his live on Friday after Thanksgiving. The Friday after Thanksgiving, it'll be posted. And we'll have everything.
Okay, so. Okay, Michael Schmidt says, why would a cam regrind cost $1,200 regrind or new? No, it's
welding.
It's welded. It's not reground. It's welded up. They welded all the journals on it and gave him a completely different profile because there is no blanks for that.
Or actually, he had a few of them that went flat. So what happened was that some of those lobes were gone, and there was nothing you could be done. So on those ones, those had to be welded. So you do a 360-degree weld on those, and you find the biggest base circle, and then you basically grind all the other ones to match. And then you have to figure out the profile you're going to work on. Will it work on the ones that are still there? If not, then you got to weld all of them. That's what $1,200 is probably. He probably welded 4 or 5 lobes and then had a cut.
Michael Schmidt says, PAW, this is my quote of the evening. PAW is eating lunch with Montgomery Wards and Sears and Radio Shack talking shit about super shops.
Right. That's a good one, right? It's true.
Yeah. So that's so funny. Tall Garage says, I'm going to use them DLC lifters just to protect this stupid expensive cam. But the best part about it is just being able to laugh at yourself. Being a hot rodder, it would almost be cheaper to have a drug addiction. It really would.
Oh, 100 times over.
Yeah.
Just look at this thing. You know what I mean?
I know.
I have a whole garage.
I'm the same problem. I'm the same problem. It's like I might as well just walk out in front of my house and just like,
right.
That's it. Day's over. Okay, so Nick the Van Man says DLC lifters are going to change the entire world or the engine world. I can't wait to build a solid flat tap at 289-302 with them. I was thinking about maybe we can shake Shane down to get a set of lifters and then try to flatten them on like a real engine. I found a 305 Chevy for $100. $100.
I'm telling you right now, we've done it. That's why it took so long.
Well, why not do it on a YouTube live? And that way, what are you
do that? Yeah. I'm actually going to be running them. They're going to be in the Slant 6. I'm going to put them in this one. So I want to put the hydraulic ones in this one, 904s, because I want to run a hydraulic flat tap it in this cam with a hydraulic rocker. So I don't have to adjust them again. That one's going to have it. Then the 318 that we're going to give away to someone, that's going to have the DLC lifters in. I showed you the cam I'm going to put in there. It's that billet roller cam that I have that we're going to cut it down to fit one of these profiles and let her eat. It's going to be some cool stuff.
All right. Well, here's a question for you, Shane. 333 class requires stock suspension points. Does stock leaf springs relocated inward mini tubs disqualify the car?
No, not a mini tub. Like, so like if you have like on a Mopar, you can relocate the springs inward, but it has to be in the factory pickup point. So that means you can't lower them down, raise them up. They just move over. But you can't, it has to go to the frame rail. It can't be any narrower than the frame rail.
Dylan Levi says, is there going to be a header rule? No, not that I know of. You can run them.
You could, yeah. No,
you can run, 180-degree headers if you want.
Yeah, whatever you want. We're not going to change anything on that.
Danny Boyd brings up a good point here. He said inline sixes were all Chevrolet, but used by Buick, Olds, Pontiac since the 1950s, and no one complained about that. And you know what's funny about that? That's 100% true, because after 1967, the Buick V6 was sold to Jeep. And so 68, 9, and 70, 71, and 72 Buick Skylarks you could get with a 250 Chevrolet inline six. So, he's right. Nobody complained about that. But maybe it's because it was a smooth running engine. I don't know. Your loyalists... I don't know, man. I can't. They're weird. Loyalists are weird. I mean, I'm a loyalist to Buick, but I'm like, I don't really care. Not as bad as most of them. I like Chevrolet. I like Buick swapping Chevrolets. That's what I like doing, because it's like for every 10,000 Chevrolets or Buick's got a Chevrolet engine in it. I can get the one Chevrolet I could put a Buick in.
I want to Slant 6 the world.
Slant 6 the world.
I just want to Slant 6 the world. It's a great engine, man. It runs really good.
Let's see. Was the weight rule 3,300 or 3,500? No, it's 9 pounds per cubic inch.
Yep.
9 pounds.
And you can't be under that. So you can be heavier, but you can't be under that. So what was it? 368 is the max. So I think that was what 3312, wasn't it?
Something like that. I don't have my phone on me at the moment.
I think
it's
it was
9 times 368
times 9. 3312. So the max cubic inch is 368. That's a 360 Chrysler 30 over.
Now you can weigh anything above 3312.
Yeah, you just can't be under after the run. So that means after you run down the track, you come over. If someone says something, you get weighed. If you're under that, then you're out. But you don't want people to run that close. But that's just that's the minimum weight.
Dylan Levi says, well, if you don't put a header diameter rule, you're going to run into some issues. I'm going to use 2-inch primaries. Use 4-inch primaries. I don't care.
Don't care. It won't make any
no
difference.
one cares about that.
Nope. Because all you're going to do is
don't
mess up
don't
your
get
wave
lost
tuning.
in the weeds here, man. We're just making a simple class for everybody. If you use 2-inch primaries,
have at it.
Hey, the world is your oyster.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think there isn't somebody out there using 2.5-inch primaries.
Actually, Levi, what you should do is step your headers. And I'm telling you, run a 1 7/8 off the head or 1 5/8 off the head. Then you step it to a 2-inch or a 1 7/8, however your step is. And that way you get 2 different wave pulses to the back of the carburetor on the same cylinder. Then you get another pulse, 2 extra pulses. So you get 2 pulses and 2 more pulses when those second pulses now hit the collector. So you're going to, instead of only getting 2, you're going to get 4 pulses to the back of the carburetor per pull. And I'm telling you right now, that makes a difference. I'm just being real.
Oh, whoa, is this true? Junkyard D says I checked on the DLC is almost $2,000 for a set.
Not even close. I don't have the cost, but they're not even close. That's someone else. That's not us. That's the reason why it took so long.
Okay, Max Wedge Dick Dastardly says he wants an LS car with a Slant 6 engine.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, I remember this conversation coming up before. And we said, hey, that's not comp. They haven't even released them. And the guy was like, yeah, it wasn't comp. And he had somebody else. He questioned somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not us. I don't even want to give the price because I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but it was like under $200.
So,
yeah, but I in fact, maybe I'm just gonna say under $200, but it'd probably be like 210 or something like that. Some guys
with tax, so it's under $299.99. How's that?
Whatever. Yes. Yeah, it's in that. But I'm telling you right now, it's inexpensive, and in fact, I think it's well under the 200 mark. But I don't remember.
Hey, so I'll throw out there, get everybody's thoughts on this. Okay. This week I picked up something that was kind of cool. I had got a 1969 Riviera frame that I was going to actually swap up under maybe like a 63 Impala, 62 Impala, something like that, and then put a big block Buick in it. Then I had this epiphany idea. What if I put a big block Buick on it and then just made the frame a race car and just raced the frame?
Be awesome.
You think that would be cool?
I think it'd be great. So I'm going to go back to this DLC coded thing. What you're seeing right there is the reason why Comp is doing what they're doing is because they are $2,000 a set from everybody else. We've done it for well under that cost. And that was why it took so long, is because we had to get it just right. Because remember, this is NASCAR technology that was from the 90s that trickled down to the market. And then people who are running super stock or whatever class run DLC coded lifters. I mean, it's nothing new, but they're super expensive. But we're trying to bring that cost out of it for all you guys.
And if you look in that magazine that Shane had last week, where he was showing you all the new products from Edelbrock, when I'm sure that thing is downloadable as a PDF on Edelbrock's website. I'm 100% certain of that.
Yeah, that's right. I got it right here.
If you look at the picture where they have the DLC lifters and you notice where the DLC coating is at, it's just on the foot lifter,
Exactly,
like just on the face.
Yeah, that was the whole point of it, is that it's just on the face of it. So, I gotta.
Well, here you go. Tall Garage is saying it's $123.95 for the small block Chevy DLC lifters.
Yeah, exactly. So it's way under $200. So I just didn't remember the exact number, but I was going to say under 150. But
and Dust Devil says he's shopping for 10.5-inch tires this winter.
Good. I got some takeoffs you can have.
Yeah, or you can, you can shop around. Like I did the cheap thing, and I just remember it's 10.5-inch or less. So I went with 28x10s because they were like literally like $50 cheaper, and then I didn't have to have any weird spacers and stuff to make it work.
Yeah, and also too, Brian, if you actually go to your local shop, like we have a local speed shop here, BB&T, and people do like who do the no prep, they run a set of tires for 1 weekend. That's it, and then they take them off, and they have plenty of life on them, and you can get them for 1/3 the cost, and they're called takeoffs, and they're really good. So here's the, if you guys want to zoom in on that, can I? There you go. So that's
here. Let's do. Can I blow you up? Is that possible? Nope, wrong person.
Yeah.
How do I blow up the other guy? Here we go. No.
Well, that's
not it. What in the world is going on here?
Okay. You're doing everything but.
I know, dude. I'm screwing it all up for everyone.
Actually, go to the other one, the other screen that you had, because that actually.
Which other screen?
Oh, I guess that's good enough right there. Well, no.
Okay.
Yeah, right there, because then I can get a little closer.
Okay, you can get the whole thing in there now.
Yeah. So there you go. Those are all the part numbers. There's everything coming, and that's on this thing. This is the new product guide. I got this a little while ago, but I couldn't share it. So, but yeah, that's there's some cool stuff in here. I went over a lot of it, but yeah, that's definitely yeah, it's really good. I'm not sure where you could find this. It's got to be a what I'll do is I'll look for something that's downloadable for this, and then I'll either give it to John or Tony's Hot Rod Garage for Friday, so people can look at it.
So Dylan Levi's saying, will these be showed at PRI? I'm just interested in seeing the tech. I've never heard of this before, you all.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll be there, Dylan. I'll be there.
Are you going to be promoting products at Edelbrock's booth?
Yeah, I'm actually Friday. Actually, on Thursday morning, I have to go there because I have to talk about all my products, and then all the sales guys there. So we give them a 1-up, and plus we have to give them pamphlets and then tell them all the ins and outs, because we're the ones who designed it. So we know all about it. So that way, throughout the day, I have to answer questions that people come over and ask questions they don't know about. And then on Friday, I'll actually be in a monkey suit, not literally, but I'll be in a nice outfit, and I'll be actually at the booth, so people can ask me questions. And then we usually leave Friday about noon to come home. So I will be there Thursday and Friday, and then I'll be there Wednesday night. We're getting in town.
So Bear Rose is saying the chassis racers are pretty cool, but those old body on frame cars are actually kind of a unibody design. They used a body bounce and body to keep the frame rigid. Yes, so I got the frame. It's an X-frame car, and I'm going to actually just, I think, put 2 seats on it and roll cage and have at it. I'm thinking about doing that. I'm not entirely sure what to do with it yet, but I think that's maybe what I'm going to do, and then see if I can get it like to run in, I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to show up at No Name Nationals and blow some tires off a big block Buick and 307 rear gear. So
Levi said he's going to be there all 3 days. Jeff's going to be there Thursday too, and Friday. Well, you guys got my number, man. Hit me up. We'll go and do something.
Junkyard D wants to know, can you give me the small block Mopar part number for those DLC lifters?
Sure. Give me 1 second. I'll give you. Sorry, they're near the end here. I just got to find them. Absolutely. Okay, so AMC N Chrysler hydraulic flat tappet part number is, oh man, don't have my other glasses on. 31033030, and it says part number XX. What's the XX stand for? Oh, maybe that's the 904. Oh, no. Okay, I'm sorry, I messed up. 3103030, and then the XX, it means it for 16 of them. So you put 16.
Number of lifters. Yeah,
number.
That's what I figured it was for.
Yeah, and that's the hydraulic, and the solid ones are 31033031, and then 16, or however many you need. And they have the same seat height. Now they do have a solid flat tappet that's got a different seat height. Now both of those are 1/8, so 1 inch 0.88. That's the seat height from the bottom to where the push rod goes into. They have a 163 seat height, which I use in a lot of my cars, so that way you can get the push rod a little farther down in there. And that one is a solid flat tappet also. That is 310323. XX for 16. So that's the three of them. So the first two ones I gave you was a hydraulic one, then a solid flat tappet. Those are the taller seat heights, and then the lower seat height is the last one I gave you.
Okay, so Buick Smith says, question, Aaron told me he's looking for a snappy, fun street 54 New Yorker, 331 Hemi, 4,004 pounds, power flight trans, 336 rear, 28-inch tall tire, tips for around 375 horsepower.
Do a rebuild and then just basically do a good valve job on it, put a camshaft in it that's going to be in the 220 to 230 range, and a dual plane on it. It'll make 375 all day long. Easy.
That's not going to kill the torque either.
Not at all.
Let's see. Michael Schmidt is saying, can someone help me locate free dyno and quarter mile software for inline 6, like the year 2000 software or whatever will work for basic info? I have a copy of that, and actually I was going to do it in a video. Yeah, desktop dyno and then desktop drag strip. They used to work together, and then you could build your car. It didn't matter if it was a 6-cylinder or 4-cylinder or 12-cylinder or whatever, but that's the one you need to find. Desktop drag strip and desktop dyno. And I think the web, there's like about 1 billion places to download that, both of those. But those are the ones you need to look for, is Dyno 2000 and desktop drag strip 2000.
Now remember, the desktop dyno, it gives you trends. Do not look at numbers, look at trends. The only thing that the desktop dyno fails on is when you start widening the LSA, and also to adding more duration to the exhaust. That clearly, it's been proven hundreds of times over. It allows an engine to carry farther in the top end range. Or just even if you don't want to widen the LSA, you just add longer duration on the exhaust. Sometimes the desktop dyno will actually kill power where it doesn't. It actually extends the power range. It basically just allows the torque curve to go out farther, which then in turn gives you more horsepower in the upper RPM range. So just be aware of that. But look for trends. It's usually pretty good in the range, so that way you can kind of see how things work with airflow and camshafts, and you can kind of see.
Okay, so Miss Cat J asked Tall Garage here, how much did the pins cost to coat? Because a little while ago, Tall Garage says that his pins are DLC coated for the Hemi. Now I'm going to tell you guys a trick here with this DLC coated stuff. Okay, the way I ran across this was I was shopping on eBay. Use NASCAR parts, because using NASCAR parts for anything that I build is way overbuilt, right? Now, what I would do is, if you want to find coated wrist pins like this, they're called what is it? What's the name of that stuff? Of course, it's called DLC.
I go to Racers Junk. I've been to
Racing Junk, but no, I do it on eBay. And what I do is I type in rod. So you put, like, if you're looking for a 6.3 inch long rod, you put 6.300 rod. It'll pull up every connecting rod that's 6.300 inches long. Some of them will be NASCAR. Because, see, the major thing that you look at NASCAR connecting rods, most of them fall between 6.125 to about 6.4 inches long. That's where a majority of them fall. So any of the used ones, even if they've never been run and they're being sold on eBay as the old NASCAR parts, but normally they'll come with wrist pins that are DLC coated. Now, if you're looking for just DLC coated, is it Capsium? Is that the name of it? Something like that. Is the company that was making them. And you could type in, but the way to find that is type in your wrist pin diameter. The NASCAR wrist pins will generally have a weird diameter. They're not like your 927 Chevrolet wrist pin. They'll be like see, I got a set of 6.4 inch long rods. I got a what did I tell you it was? 704, 767, something like that. Real small diameter wrist pin. You can find a lot of those wrist pins like that diameter on there that are DLC coated. You can sometimes find 927 or 912, like the Ford size, but man, them suckers are snapped up like that and they don't go cheap like the other stuff. Okay. And if you can find something to run those rods, what I do is I buy the rods first, and then since you save so much money on the rods, make a custom piston to fit the whole damn thing together. That's the best way to do it. You get really good stuff. Okay, so Nick the Van Man says, I'll have that 4.9 EFI 300 out of my van under 100,000 miles. You can have it free if you want to put an Eaton M90 on it with a Q-Jet and put a switch pitch behind it. No, I'll pass. I'll pass.
Perfect.
Am I that cliche?
Yes,
pretty much.
That's why we have an inside joke on the minutes. You know, that's the minutes.
Oh, who's all on in the inside joke? Everybody but me?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, Paul, I don't want to butcher your last name. Paul says, Shane, did you ever find out if there were any Edelbrock Q-Jet calibration kits kicking around?
No, none. In fact, I did look for that and I totally forgot about it, but I did look for it the day after that and nothing at all. Unfortunately, sorry.
Okay, so 38 Racing says, Dallas, you made me think of an interesting 333 class question. If the chassis and body aren't the same brand, which does the engine need to match, i.e. S10 frame under a 50s Buick or the like?
It'd have to be a Buick.
I'm trying to figure out if the chassis.
So it says.
Oh yes, you're going for the body, whatever the body is.
Yeah, but yeah. So I understand what he's saying is because a lot of people put the S10 chassis underneath the Buick, but we're trying to make it as simple, and obviously there's going to be way outside convoluted deals, but the idea of this class is because 99% of the people in this chat and who go to the No Name Nationals can build an engine or have an engine that will fit in this class with the weight of their vehicle the way it is right now. All they got to do is just either just do a rebuild on it, change the camshaft, do a few different things, but really it's going to be just kind of fine tuning what they already have.
All right. So Dust Devil saying, Shane, do you have any idea when the first Edelbrock car show will be for 2025?
It's usually when it starts to get warmer. I think what March, maybe it's either, I think it's April. I think April's the first ones. But I don't know. I will let you guys know when they post it. But we got to get through PRI first and through the holidays.
So Junkyard D saying Summit's where I saw that set comp and it shows the lifter part number. It's $1,952 or $32. He was saying that they've had this technology around for a long time, and then a lot of the super stock racers were using these lifters. Anything for 1 horsepower gain. But the thing is, those lifters are completely 100% DLC coated. The whole lifter is.
Yeah, and that part number doesn't even match us. Now, I can tell you when I was at Crowder, we had lifters, flat tappets that were like super polished to a micro polished, like, and they were like, just to polish them was almost $700 just to have these things polished to the face. And we had different levels of these things, and then man, they were just. A lot of people are spending money on this. And so, yeah, there is some super polishes with DLC coating on them. And it's just.
Well, and generally what you're looking at is you're not paying for like the polish. You're paying for the man hours it takes to do the polish, right? Or that DLC coating. That's a carbon impregnation of steel, right? And what they have to do is they have to get carbon. You bombard the steel with carbon molecules, and it's kind of like powder coating on a molecular level to get that thing to accept it. But
it's almost like a black chrome. It really looks cool.
Yeah, it
I'll
does look
actually
cool.
have a set. Yeah, I have a set. I have a couple sets, and I'll put them in. We'll do a thing with a show and tell, and how the cam's going to be, and so on and so forth.
Well, the wrist pins of my T-Bird are DLC coated.
Yeah,
not that you can see them, but
Yeah.
you'd have to go back and watch the old videos and see if you can look through the block, the fender, the tire, that I run into them. When did they start doing that in NASCAR? 99, 98, 99, somewhere around there?
No, that was actually in the mid 90s. Is really
was it mid 90s?
Mid 90s, yeah. They actually were running them. Some teams were before that, but really, it's kind of everybody was running them in the mid 90s. Once they started running the boom tubes, and then they started learning about wave tuning on the boom tube, and then that's when the DLC, the RPMs went up a little bit, and that's when
if you go back and look, okay, so what that DLC fixed that you may not be aware of is if you go back and look at some of the old NASCAR videos from the 90s, there'd be like where the engines will blow up in the first 40 laps, guys would be going home. And what happens is when you decelerate the engine and re-accelerate the engine around the curves like you do at NASCAR, it doesn't sling the oil up on the wrist pin quite that easily when you're decelerating, I think is what it was. And what happens is when they decelerate, it starves the wrist pin for oil. And then what happens when you starve the wrist pin for oil is it'll generally gall the piston. And then within just seconds of that, at that kind of RPM, it just saws right through the piston and breaks the piston skirt off. And then you end up clearancing your block with your super expensive rods that won't break.
So Miss Kaji asked, Shane, did you miss the head spec episode? No, you didn't. It never happened because we had many other things come up, but we will do that because I do have. I will actually do a head spec show and tell. I'll bring a Gen 3 Hemi head in. All the new heads that we have, I'll line them up here on my bench, and then I'll make my camera in a different area, so that way we can kind of go over all the heads, not just the Mopar head, but we'll go to the Gen 3 Hemi, and there's a lot of different LS heads in here. And for the LT, we have let's see here. We have a lot. I'll do it later, but there's a lot of heads coming out too. And then also too, I'll get one of these new superchargers and show it to you. They're really bitching. Works well. Works amazing.
So the DLC wrist pins, when they don't get oil, it doesn't matter because the carbon will actually weep out of the pores of the steel and it'll lubricate it. Okay. Let's see.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Max Wedge Dick Dashley says my buddy uses Schubeck lifters with porcelain bottoms, $1,800 a set, if you can find them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so, like, if you look at stock, super stock, NASCAR, there's nothing factory about any of that stuff, and there's nothing budget about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like stock eliminator drag racing from NHRA. It became where you had to be the $1 million a year guy to be able to compete.
Actually, I have some really good rods I'm going to show here. These are, I don't have the pins for them, but this will show the difference between like a really high end super stock style rod, like in the stock class. I'll get it.
Well, there you go. Everybody gets a freebie view. I don't know if anyone cares. I haven't smoked in like a month. So we're going to win this time.
Sorry about that. I don't want to show the manufacturer because I don't work there anymore.
I can only imagine where they're made.
Shocker, right?
Yeah.
It comes in a black box. See, black box. So now these right here are really, I made these. These ones you cannot touch the rod bolts. So this is basically a super stock rod. It's a 2-inch journal. These rod bolts are multi-phase rod bolts, so they're the AMS 3.5s, basically $85 a rod bolt. This is made for a big block Chevrolet. Technically, it's a 990 pin, but you can tell how light this is. This is going in like they were built to go in my 68 Dart, so that way they could. I was going to run them in a Hemi since they have the same length on it. I was going to raise the pin height in it since I was going to run a stock stroke with these rods. And then I offset ground the crankshaft, and that makes it exactly 383 cubic inches. So in 1968 and 69, they used to have a 383 Dart. So I was going to put a 383 across the hood, but it'd be a Gen 3 Hemi. So, I have
we have a 383 Hemi.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
that's the cool joke.
Yeah.
That's the joke. Because
Sorcerer worked on your car.
Yes. And that's the funny that I say that because it's there was always someone who said 383 Hemi, and I'm going to literally put 383 Hemi on the hood of that car for Sorcerer type stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, the King Sorcerer worked on it.
Right.
All right. So Buick Smith says, Dallas, did you put aluminum different heads on Jack the Giant Killer? I thought I saw a post recently. No. Matter of fact, this weekend I'm probably driving down there to his house in Orlando. And we figured out what happened is on Jack the Giant Killer started putting water in the pan. And at first we thought it was like I had the heads welded up in 16 different spots. They were severely damaged over the years of abuse and use and not available parts. So they got a lot of weld work on them. So it was kind of like, I think the head's cracked or have split, or one of the welds gave up or something, and it filled the pan full of water. Well, come to find out, it ended up, had put the intake manifold is a 215 Offenhauser intake manifold. It's a single plane intake manifold that has spacers to use on the 300 block. And to hold it all together, since you got essentially a spacer with a gasket on either side and then an intake manifold, I put ARP studs in there to hold it all tight. And what happened, I think, is that what I think it is popped two of the threads out of the heads next to the water jacket in the rear, which is kind of weird. And it's actually the inside one instead of the outside one, which has nothing holding it but the outside. But it popped both the rear inside ones, and it popped the studs out somehow. And I don't know if it's because the expansion rate of it back there is considerably more with the aluminum, and then the ARP stud doesn't move. But it pulled the threads out of the head in both of them. So I'm going to go down there. Got to pull the intake manifold off, the spacers off, drill it out, helicoil them, and we're probably going to helicoil quite a few of them. Just if the threads aren't top-notch 100%, they're getting helicoiled until we run out of thread certs, and then put the ARPs back in it and torque it all down with some new gaskets on there, and hopefully it holds water again. So that'd be amazing if it did, so that Jim can get the track. Junkyard D says, win some bar bets with a 383 Hemi.
Exactly. Because how many times I heard that. It's funny that that's what made me think about it. Was earlier we said 383 Hemi and sorcerer stuff, and I was like, oh, yeah. I can build a 383 Hemi. I'm going to.
And Max Wedge Dick Dastardly says, you wouldn't believe how many people don't understand my 426 is not a Hemi.
Right?
Yeah. There you go. Man. Junkyard D, like sailors that get rooster tattoos on their feet. LOL. And you may not get that reference. Shane, you might be in San Diego. No. Okay. If you're a sailor, you were supposed to get a pig and a rooster tattooed on your feet. And that's why I was saying I'm missing all the sailor tattoos. I didn't do any of them. And I should have like a zillion. So the pig and the rooster or the chicken, if your ship sank, those were the only animals, regardless of how they were on the ship, boxed up, crated up, whatever, they would float to the top and they would survive the shipwreck. So sailors used to put that on their feet, and supposedly if the ship sank, they would be able to make it ashore.
Good to know.
Yeah. Let's see.
Levi's back cartridge says, isn't a 426 not a Hemi called a wedge? It's actually, yes, but it's called a max wedge. They actually typically had really they had ports that were raised up on the intake, so they were better flowing. They basically fixed the wedge problem, but it was the best you're going to get out of something like
that. The 426 max wedge was before the 426 Hemi.
Yeah. That was like, what, 63, wasn't it? Or 62?
Yeah, they started with like 413 max wedge. And you had your 413 wedge, 413 max wedge. Then you had the 426 wedge, 426 max wedge. Then you had the 426 Hemi. And then everybody's like, the gloves came off and the wheels fell off the bus and people got feelings hurt. And like, it was all downhill from there. And then Ford made the Cleveland and made it all happen again. So, but that's really how it went. What it was like, NASCAR ruled the Hemi to death until it couldn't compete anymore. Ford made the sock motor. NASCAR wouldn't allow it. So they went drag racing and then blew up a whole bunch of expensive parts that they didn't have replacements for. And then the Hemi ruled in drag racing. So they limited it to the fuel classes only, pretty much, by putting so much weight on it, they couldn't compete. And then Ford came out with the Cleveland small block and did the same thing to it in all the other classes, with exception of top fuel. You couldn't compete with a Cleveland top fuel. But in like pro stock, they were murderous with the Cleveland, to the point where if you go back and look at that's what some of the neatest stuff about drag racing is that era of drag racing, like 1970, I guess it'd probably be, pro stock started in NHRA ranks in 1970. In AHRA, they had it was called Heads Up Super Stock from 68 to 70. It actually went 68 further than that, but they all changed name to pro stock after NHRA came out with pro stock, which was just a copy of the AHRA rules. But so 70 to about 75 or 6, it was like some of the most epic stuff ever. It was weight breaks and rule changes every week after each event. And you went from a manually shifted 833 transmission in Mopar to where Ronnie Sox was the king. He was Mr. 4-speed, really.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that's what's his name says he's Mr. 4-speed, but was it Bullet Bob Reed? No. Who's Mr. 4-speed? I can't remember the dude's name. Either way, until 1972, and they allowed the Linko, and the Linko it made everybody Ronnie Sox, and that's when it got really kind of crazy, and the gloves came off. But in a point there was they came out with the Pinot, which would have been like 1970, 1, 2, somewhere around there, and then Jack Roush and a guy named Wayne Gap had the Gap and Roush Pinot, and that thing was murderous with a Cleveland. So NHRA weighed him to death, and they said, "Hey, you got to have a wheelbase like," or no, I'm sorry, it was the Maverick. It was the Maverick. They said it's got to have like a 106-inch wheelbase. Well, the Maverick had like a 104-inch wheelbase. So they built a car. It was a 4-door Maverick and ran it in pro stock called the Tijuana Taxi, and then went back to just smacking everybody around with the Cleveland, and then finally just weighed the Cleveland out to where the Hemi carried 7.5 pounds and the Cleveland carried 7.3 pounds per cubic inch. So it pretty much murdered them. They couldn't compete any longer. Okay. Michael Schmidt says, "How's one seal?" I'm certain this is supposed to say helicoil, so it doesn't leak. Are there any special helicoils that the machine shop use, or is a helicoil a helicoil? It's not the helicoils that's leaking. It's where the helicoil was at. It was right next to the water jacket, so water was seeping down the inside of the head down into the pan.
Oh no, he's talking about when you put a helicoil on like a head stud or head bolt. They tend to leak. What I usually do, Michael Schmidt, is I will put, now they have orange now, and orange I'm a big fan of, but I would put red Loctite on it now, and then I would run After I did that, then I'd run a tap through that would knock off all the red Loctite that would be on top of it, and then I would put the bolt through, and then you just do your normal sealing on it, and it will not leak ever, and you'll never get it out too. So.
Man, holy cow!
It's already 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. It's already past the 2-hour mark. Wow. I think, yeah, I kind of gave everybody a history lesson for too long there.
That's all right.
But I guess we've reached our 2-hour mark. We're going to go ahead and let you guys out. We're going to sign off for the night. There's like quite a few questions and some of the stuff I'd like to get to, but we'll see you next Wednesday.
And remember, Tuesday, go to Buff Del Campo on theirs, on Buff Del Campo at 7 p.m. Obviously, us on Wednesdays, and then you go to John Wilburn at 7 Central on John Wilburn, and then Tony's Hot Rod Garage right after it. Those are really, if you're going to look at some lives, those are the 4 lives that I would definitely hit in a week.
And then you know what I did find out? Did you know 6% Recycled? He did our live. Essentially, it was originally was at the same time as our show.
Oh,
it divided up our crew, our community, which I never liked. I didn't like that. But anyway, he moved his live, and it's now like I believe after ours.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but so check out 6% Recycled if you're looking for something to watch. So.
And remember, I will have the rules. We will have the rules posted the Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. They will be posted, and I'll make sure that me and Dallas put aside some time to make sure hammer those out, put them on a spreadsheet, and that way we'll get them over to John Wilburn for you.
There you go. Herb McCandless was.
That's right. Herb. That was the guy's name.
Yep. I couldn't remember who it was. I knew it was Max something, but McCandless. Okay, Herb McCandless. But until next Wednesday, we will see you guys on the flip side. So see you later.
You guys take it easy. Have a good week.